With Diddy awaiting sentencing on October 3rd for the two charges he was convicted of under the Mann Act, which could have him serving up to 20 years, most people have been left wondering how a trial that should have been the shining beacon and catalyst for positive change in the industry proved itself to be nothing more than one of the biggest humiliation rituals ever seen. Not only snatching off the practically see-through veil of respectability that Diddy has been cloaked in for years.
Oh my God, what is that? Oh my God, what is that?
And exposing Diddy's disgusting treatment of those he claimed to love and the humiliating debauchery that he and others have used to control the desperate, but has also laid him open to liability in hundreds of civil suits that, along with his team of lawyers, will basically strip Diddy of all the money that he has amassed throughout the years. And the answer can be found in the same reason why Diddy was allowed to get away with such atrocious behavior for so long. People have allowed the love of money to guide their interactions with him and others like him. And just like the Bible says, the love of money is the root of all evil. Because not only did that lead Diddy to betray his own culture through dirty deals and promoting certain behaviors that have never benefited us, but that same love of money has led to a case that, instead of truly breaking up a systemic plot, covered up deeds and names of others that acted with Diddy, because their perceived monetary or societal value was greater now that Diddy has run afoul of those who had pulled his strings for years. And since over the years Diddy's own failure to act with any morality or integrity towards others, regardless of how they allowed themselves to be treated, turned him into a monstrous figure, nearly everyone was rooting for his punishment. Because Diddy was finally being treated the same way he had treated others for years, when they found themselves wanting to have access to his connections, status, or wealth, but instead found themselves facing the choice of being blatantly debased as the mogul showed clear disdain for their talents, their bodies, or even their humanity. And from the lawsuits, the raids, being behind bars, and having the things he kept hidden from the world for years exposed in such a degrading public trial, Diddy was finally getting a taste of his own medicine. Because the man who some have spoken of as a hero or icon for the culture was finally exposed for being nothing more than an industry plant. Because like Cat Williams said right as this all started happening, when they make them into that position, they can take them down whenever they want.
Anytime they make you into that position, part of that contract is you do understand whenever we want to take you down, we can, right? Anytime you see them telling you something you can't believe, just understand it's a play. And it don't matter. You gonna know it's a play as soon as they get in that position and think they gonna tell somebody something. No, you're not. No, you're not. What is you talking about? Get out of here. Get out of here, ugly boy. Yeah, they love fooling the people.
And nothing proved that more so than this trial. Even from the start, when Diddy's own lawyer walked away smiling after his client was denied bail for the first time.
Diddy's lawyer smiling while walking away after Diddy's bail is denied is giving.
Gotcha, bitch.
Or when his lawyers seemed so inept that not only did they blatantly admit certain things during the trial that would open their client up to even more civil liabilities regardless of the outcome of his criminal trial, but they also dropped celebrity names and suspicious events that had no connection to the actual charges, but seemed more like threats to remind others what could happen to them if they stopped towing the line. Calling out people like Michael B. Jordan, Chris Brown, Britney Spears, Bruce Willis, Eddie Murphy, Usher, Neo, 50 Cent, French Montana, Fabulous, and Whitney Houston's passing, only to later on refuse to call even one witness for Diddy's defense. These moves left a lot of people scratching their heads because it could have meant that either Diddy's lawyers were his ops or They knew that this whole trial was something other than what it presented itself to be. But it was the prosecutors who really gave the whole game away, with a one-man RICO case where the victims were made to testify in exchange for immunity, yet they couldn't get even one co-conspirator on the stand, let alone KK, the woman who the prosecution actually slipped up and called Diddy's right brain, basically indicating that Diddy didn't have the smarts to be the kingpin they were trying to portray him as, and further showing that KK has more pull and connections than Diddy, because they couldn't even subpoena her testimony. And when you put all those factors together, you're left with someone who is smarter and has more connections than the person they're working for, who, despite her name coming up at least 11,000 times in the trial, was never arrested. And as soon as the ish hit the fan right before Diddy was put behind bars in September 2024, the person whose main job it was to make sure everything stayed on track conveniently resigns. All of that seems to add up to one thing. She was Diddy's handler, there to make sure he kept promoting an agenda of debauchery, lasciviousness, and influence submission to the culture, clearing his path of the messes he made and letting him soar higher and higher. But as soon as he thought he reached a height where he could promote his own agenda, the flying carpet was yanked from under him, and the person who had been fixing things for him for over 10 years was nowhere to be found, leaving Diddy to fall into a pit of his own making that he had started digging over 30 years prior, when he started as an intern at Uptown Records, where he gained a reputation for insubordination, and later being a producer who not only tried to steal the shine from the artist, but someone who took advantage of his position of power, was hard to work with, was seen as having a volatile nature, an uncontrollable ego. And even the CEO, Andre Harrell, admitted that Diddy was getting a little too big for himself and bothering people, which is why he fired him. But even in the face of all that disrespect, for some reason, Andre still kept Diddy on the payroll after he fired him.
Even when I let Puff go, for the whole time he was let go, he was always on payroll. I never stopped paying him until he found his next spot.
And from that point, the money man, like Clive Davis, the founder of Arista Records, must have seen in Diddy someone who would do whatever it takes to get to the top. Because that same year, Clive helped Diddy launch Bad Boy Records, where Diddy used the talent of artists like Craig Mack, Biggie Smalls, Faith Evans, Carl Thomas, Total, 112, Shine, and Mace to launch his own career as a rapper, making himself a bigger star than the artist on his label, and furthering the agenda of the money man behind the industry, making the people with talent think that they are expendable, disposable, which leads to those same talented individuals signing bad deals and making questionable decisions and effectively handing over their power and autonomy and becoming pawns to the industry. When we all know that it's the talents from God that make us uniquely great and lead us to the forefront. These people found in Diddy someone who could be used as a tool to denigrate those gifted people who entered his orbit. So they threw money behind him and elevated him, outwardly promoted him as an example of excellence in the culture, while they tried to cover up the abomination of his behavior behind the bright lights of fame and fortune, trying to give him the image of a champion or hero to those whose thirst guided their every action. So that even when Diddy's own words and behavior never hid who he was, instead of saying, "Get thee behind me," they let their own hunger drive them to cast their talents and dreams before swine, where they were trampled before they themselves were destroyed from the inside out. The narratives behind Diddy's status were created to deceive a culture into going against themselves. But like we talked about in previous videos, what good is it doing us to have someone in a position of power that's going to do his own people dirtier than those that came before him? This man has never been a hero. Has he made money? Sure. But if you think about all the testimony regarding the frequency of the FOs and Diddy's alleged continual substance use, which most of the time was visible with just one look at him, he obviously wasn't the one steering the ship. His only talent was spotting the talent in others after they had already gained momentum and made a name for themselves. And then, once he had them on his label, he seemingly coveted that talent in others so much that he not only had to be on their record doing his little jigs, but he also seemed to actively sabotage their progress. From allegedly making Biggie ditch a promotional tour in London that Arista had set up for him, just to come to the West Coast for an after party when he knew that tempers were still hot after Tupac was taken out, only for Biggie to meet the same fate that night. Or even when you look at what he did with the publishing rights of the artists under his label, or how some of the artists he produced have very little to show for, and now have to work themselves to the bone after years of making millions for Diddy. The details that have been revealed about his behavior with Cassie paint a graphic picture of the basis of his dealings with anyone he connected with, business or otherwise, using his manufactured success and status in the industry to gain access to bright and talented people full of dreams and aspirations, and encouraging them to debase themselves with him and others, so that they no longer see the beauty in themselves. It's very telling that of all the people that Diddy has supposedly helped through the years, his family is the only one that has seemingly prospered, while it seems like most of his associates are either locked up, taken out, stressed out, or washed out. So when they start throwing words around like icon, legacy, and hero, just ask, what has Diddy really done for the culture? And the answer is resoundingly clear.
Not a damn thing!
And even though this performative trial has gone out with a whimper, the truth has been revealed that not only has the so-called empire builder been wearing no clothes this entire time, but he's also covered in the filthy, rotten, decaying, gag-inducing stench of the tainted, tattered, and stolen dreams and lives of others that will never again allow him to have the worldwide influence that he craved more than anything else. Let me know what you think in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching.